Hey, I get it. When you're about to drop a few $100s on a home audio upgrade, you're constantly wondering, am I really getting what I need, or am I just throwing money at the wrong thing? That hesitation is real, especially with a bundle that promises a soundbar, a sub, and 2 wireless speakers all in one package. You want to know if it actually fits your living room, your listening habits, and your budget before you click Add to Cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's talk about the Sonos Beam Gen 2 paired with the Sub Mini and a pair of Era 100 speakers. On paper it looks like a complete system for a small to medium-sized room, a compact soundbar for TV audio, a tiny but punchy sub for low-frequency oomph, and 2 stereo-capable wireless speakers that can sit on either side of the couch or be placed on shelves. The idea is to give you a panoramic soundstage without having to buy a full-blown surround sound setup. But does it deliver that promise in everyday use, and who should actually consider it? First, let's walk through the setup experience because that's where many buyers stumble. The Sonos app is the hub for everything. You download it, connect your phone or tablet to your home Wi-Fi, and the app walks you through adding each component, starting with the Beam, then the Sub Mini, then the Era 100 pair. The process is genuinely quick. I was able to have everything recognized and ready to play in under 10 minutes, even though I'm not a tech wizard. What's helpful is that the app automatically places each speaker in a virtual room layout, so you can see how the sound will be routed. If you've ever used a traditional AV receiver, you'll appreciate how the app replaces a lot of the manual speaker distance calculations. Now, onto real-world performance. The Beam Gen 2 is a fairly thin bar, about the same height as a typical bookshelf speaker, but it packs a decent amount of drivers. For movies and TV shows, it creates a surprisingly wide soundstage. Dialogue stays clear even when you've cranked the volume up, and the built-in Dolby Atmos processing adds a sense of height that you don't usually get from a non-upward-firing speaker. What that means for a night in binge-watch session is you'll feel like the action is happening around you, not just behind the TV. The Sub Mini, despite its compact footprint, really shows its value when you watch content with deep bass. Think of a sci-fi film with plenty of explosions or a sports broadcast with crowd roar. The sub fills in the low end without muddying the mid-range. However, there's a subtle trade-off. The Sub Mini can only push about 30 watts continuously, so while it's enough to feel a thump in a 150 square foot room, you'll notice it taper off if you try to crank it past 80 dB. In a larger living room, or if you're after a home theater experience that rivals a dedicated 5.1 system, you might find the bass a bit restrained. The 2 Era 100 speakers are where the panoramic claim really shows itself. They're true wireless, no speaker wires running across the floor, and they auto-pair inside the Sonos app. When you place one on each side of the couch, the system creates a stereo image that feels wider than a single soundbar could ever achieve. I tested them with a favorite indie album that relies heavily on instrument separation. The guitars landed cleanly on the left, the piano on the right, and the vocals sat right in the middle. That separation is particularly useful if you use the system for music listening as well as for movies. One practical strength of this bundle is its flexibility. Because each component runs off Wi-Fi and is controlled through the same app, you can add more Sonos speakers later if you decide you want a true surround setup. The Beam also doubles as a smart speaker. Alexa and Google Assistant are built in, so you can ask it to play a podcast, set a timer, or control smart lights without needing a separate voice assistant device. That kind of integration is a real time saver for people who already use Sonos for multi-room audio in other parts of the house. On the flip side, there are a few hidden trade-offs that matter once you've unpacked the box. First, the reliance on Wi-Fi means your experience is only as good as your network. In a house with a congested router or lots of devices on the same band, you might notice occasional dropouts, especially when the Beam is handling a high dynamic range movie soundtrack. A wired Ethernet connection is optional for the Beam, but the Sub Mini and Era 100 only talk over Wi-Fi, so you'll need a solid, stable network to keep everything smooth. Second, the ecosystem lock-in. Sonos devices play best with each other, which is great if you're already invested in Sonos, but if you have a mix of Bluetooth or AirPlay-only speakers, you'll quickly run into compatibility quirks. You can't simply swap out the Era 100 for another brand speaker without losing the seamless room.